What weird ritual was your teenager performing every night while you slept? My daughter started getting up at night to check the thermostat, and I figured she was just going through a phase where she was always too hot or too cold. But when I started paying attention, I realized something was seriously wrong. She was getting up every hour like clockwork throughout the entire night, and I could hear her footsteps creaking down the hallway and then back to her room over and over again. Within 3 weeks, she looked like a different person, with hollow eyes and shaking hands that spilled her morning orange juice more often than not. She quit the drama club she'd loved for 2 years, and when her best friend came by asking why she'd missed the cast party, she just stared blankly and said she had important things to monitor at home. At dinner, she would excuse herself every 10 minutes to go check something, and then come back looking relieved or increasingly anxious depending on what she found, while our elderly golden retriever Biscuit would follow her each time like he was trying to comfort her. My husband worked nights, and I worked days, so we were like ships passing in the night, and neither of us realized how bad it had gotten until her principal called about excessive tardiness. We tried talking to her, but she just insisted she was having trouble sleeping, and promised to work on it while her eyes darted nervously toward the hallway. I started finding thermometers in her backpack and receipts for more that she'd bought with her allowance money at different stores around town, instead of the art supplies she usually spent it on. Her bathroom drawer had 3 digital ones and 2 old mercury ones she'd found at yard sales apparently. Something was driving my daughter to monitor our home temperature obsessively, and I needed to figure out what before she completely fell apart. I started paying closer attention, and noticed she would tense up around 7:30 every evening, like she was waiting for something bad to happen, and rush to check the thermostat before hurrying back to her room. One day while changing her sheets, I found detailed notebooks hidden under her mattress with pages and pages of temperature readings, all precisely noting 69.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Every single entry for 2 months straight showed the same exact temperature recorded every 10 minutes from the time she got home until she left for school. One morning, I decided to call in sick to work because something felt different about her anxiety that day, and I had a suspicion that whatever was happening occurred while my husband and I were both at work. I dropped her at school like normal, and then came back home to wait inside the house to see if anything unusual happened during the day. At exactly 11:30, our pet sitter Kathy let herself in with her key, even though this wasn't one of her scheduled days to check on our elderly golden retriever. I watched through the kitchen window as she walked straight to the thermostat and stood there shaking her head and writing something in a little notebook of her own before pulling out her phone to dial someone. I crept closer to hear better through the cracked window as Kathy left a voicemail for my daughter, with her voice getting increasingly shrill. I can see from the thermostat history that it hit 69 degrees at 7:32 last night, and you know that's the critical digestion window for senior dogs with kidney conditions, so you better have a good explanation ready when you get home from school. She hung up and then started scrolling through her phone, muttering to herself about ungrateful families before she started rapidly texting someone while shaking her head, and I knew from her expression that she was sending something awful to my daughter. I walked through the front door to find Kathy still standing at the thermostat, typing furiously on her phone, and her face went white when she saw me standing there. She tried to stammer some explanation about how she was just concerned about our dog's health, but I told her to get out immediately and leave her house key on the counter. When my daughter got home from school that afternoon, she collapsed into my arms crying about how Kathy knew every time the temperature changed even by half a degree, and how she didn't want our dog to die, and she tried so hard to keep the temperature perfect, but Kathy would always know, and sent her pictures of dead dogs claiming that's what happened to pets whose owners didn't maintain exactly 69.5 degrees. She said she's been documenting everything in case Biscuit dies because the investigators will need to know exactly when I failed him. My daughter sobbed into my shoulder. We changed the locks that afternoon and filed a restraining order the next day when Kathy showed up trying to check the thermostat through our windows. Biscuit's actual vet assured us that room temperature has nothing to do with kidney function, and my daughter started therapy the following week.